Hello everybody, I'm Marion Kane and I'm the daughter of Dr. Mel Schachter, who you're honoring today. I'm here in my kitchen in Toronto where I live and I'm thinking about my dad telling us in 1965 when we were living in London, England, and I was 19, that he wanted to move to Edmonton to become the head of the physiology department. And I came down one morning and he was holding a postcard and he held it up and showed it to us and he says, "We're gonna live here, Edmonton, it's a beautiful place." And of course that picture was taken in summer. And we did arrive in the summer of 1965. I had had 1 year of university in Edinburgh. And we arrived and it was blue sky, a lot of sky, and completely different than what I'd been used to growing up in London. And I lasted 3 years and my dad lasted 20 years in Edmonton. Here's my favorite photo of my dad. This was taken in London about 6 years before he died. He died in May of 2000. And this is a typical look of Mel. He was kind of dapper in a plain way. I mean, he didn't have many clothes, but he liked to wear a scarf. And he was rotund. He was also larger than life in personality, as you know. He had an inimitable way of talking, which I realized was kind of a wise guy way of talking that I saw recently and heard in a movie from the 1940s about the mob. And my dad used to talk like that out of the side of his mouth. And he used to use words like scram. So my dad came from a very poor family in Montreal Jewish ghetto. He was between ages of Irving Layton and Mordecai Richler and went to the same schools. And he was a boy wonder. He was really intelligent and he could read when he went to school at age 4. And nobody in his family could read. His mother could read, but most of his family couldn't read. So he was a boy wonder and got great marks and got into McGill with a Jewish quota, which was higher than non-Jews. So these are the things I want to say about my dad that people may not have known. He was funny. He was extremely funny when he was in a good mood, and he was not always in a good mood. But when he was in a good mood, he would dance around the living room, playing Swan Lake on the gramophone and doing the dance of the piglet, which was dance of the cygnets. He could be very sardonic, sarcastic, and biting in his language. So you didn't want to get on the wrong side of my dad. And I wasn't often on his wrong side, although I knew when to avoid him when he was in a bad mood. Another image I have of my dad is running around the garden. We had a big garden in Finchley in London with a butterfly net, trying to catch hornets for his research into venom of wasps and hornets. And he looked decidedly like Winnie the Pooh. And then after that incident, we would go to the fridge, or I would go to the fridge and find a jar of hornets in the fridge. They were still alive, buzzing around inside the jar. and actually my mother was allergic to hornets and wasps, which was kind of ironic. I miss my dad because he was so warm underneath this crusty exterior. And his warmth came out in his doctoring behavior. And I was sick most of my childhood because he would be so nurturing and attentive and bring me chicken soup and feel my glands, look at my tongue, put his hand on my forehead. He was very, very attentive. And When I phoned him from Canada when he went back to live in England with my mum Ruth, I used to say, you know, I've got this complaint or the other thing wrong with me, and he would have 3 answers. One of them was, go lie in the sun. The second one was, don't drink so much coffee. And the third one was, relax, relax. So I do miss him. And the last little memory I have of someone who knew him well was Dr. Dennis Noble, who was one of my dad's graduate students in London in the 50s and 60s. And he used to come to our house. We had great dinner parties. My mum's a great cook and a great host. And Dennis used to be at a lot of these gatherings. About 3 years ago, I met up with him in London. My mother invited him for lunch to a restaurant. And he's a famous scientist these days. He's done seminal work on the heart and on the genome. So he's a very elegant man, and he was sitting next to me, and I said, Dennis, how would you describe my dad, Mel? And he thought about it, and he said, roly-poly. So that's what I'd like to end with. And thank you very much for honoring my dad.